Doppelganger came about because we were, if you think about it, we were all part of the ATV team. And Joe Douglas was the head of drama for TV. And we were over at Elstree to have a luncheon thing that was going on. It might have been an award, I don't know. And Joe turned to me and said, "Have you got any ideas hovering around that we could use in our drama of the week?" And I said, "Well, I'll have a look," because I kept everything, you know. And I looked through and I found Doppelganger. It wasn't called Doppelganger then. And I thought, oh, this is really good. So I said to Joe, this is really good, this storyline. It's too good to go in for Play of the Week. I think we should try and set it up as a movie. And Lou Grade, he got Universal in. Once he knew Universal were on board, he said, right, I'll come in as well. He didn't want to do it on his own. And that's how it all grew up. And that was fascinating casting for that. And we had an American director who he'd done things like he'd been an editor, but he directed a Rita Hayworth movie or something. That was his claim to fame, and he was very American in his approach, but that was fine. So I sat for God knows how many days into a closed theatre watching for casting. And I was loving, we were doing it at Pinewood and everything. And so then I realised the politics of making an American movie, And the first day of shooting, we had the guy from, I can't think of his name now, from Roy Thinnes, who was The Invaders. One of the people said, well, actually, Roy Thinnes is married to a very nice actress called Lynn Loring. And I said, oh, I've heard of Lynn Loring. Yes, she's done something. So we looked at pictures of her and everything, and we said, well, let's get her over. And it was the biggest mistake in the world to employ a husband and wife, because if she stayed late, he would get upset and go storming down the corridor and say, where's my wife? And if he stayed late, there was something else. And one day he said, where's Len? Where's Len? And I said, well, and we were just doing costumes and everything then. So I said, well, Lynn's down in the corridor. She's in makeup. We were trying out some makeup. And he said, I want her home now. And he walked to the end of the corridor and put his fist through a glass door. And I thought, oh, just to think that I didn't like puppets. I think it was underrated, actually. Later on, they played it in Southern TV and said it was the most popular revival, if you like, of a show they'd ever had. People just actually absolutely loved it. I treated it really, the costumes and the casting, as if I was dealing with the puppets in a way. The fun was really that I had to think about the girls on Moonbase and how to make them different. So we had the silver costumes. Then I thought, let's do a purple wig. And again, I went back to my wig creations people and said, look, this is what I want. So I remember coming into the studio in my office and sitting with a wig on in the office. No one took any notice. I thought, why aren't they saying something? And then walking in and out of the office, they probably used to me doing crazy things like that. But I did some tests and I realised then that it was going to work really well. I cringed, talk about incorrectness, politically incorrectness. I cringed when you have two of the main characters, one that I didn't use again. Two girls walk by and they sort of give a sort of appreciative look at, oh, it seemed so corny when I saw it. I thought, oh, please don't do that. But that was the time, that was the era. UFO will be around for a long time, in my opinion, Yeah, I was part of it. I used to go on location and everything and keep my hand in, I remember once we all arrived in Rome and it was a strike, so I was going around and collecting everybody's washing for the cast because everyone's on strike in Rome, all these things happen. So I was still part of it, but not really actively every day, so. I did a couple of the scripts. I did one particular script that I liked very much. And I did that, and I decided I would step back a little, and with my baby boy and everything. And I'd had some, after the car crash, I wasn't too well and everything. And I think the toll of the whole thing was beginning to tell, and working every day with Jerry and everything was getting more and more difficult with all the people that I had around me before had gone. John had gone, Reg was still there, but he wasn't sort of, doing very much. And so the fun and the enjoyment of it really had gone for me. So I decided I'll step back now. And then I did a couple of shows myself, wrote a couple of things that I did on TV. So basically that was it. Things were unraveling a bit. So then we went into space 1999. Jerry and I went to America. Lou sent us off to Hollywood and said, look, I want you to cast it out there. And I had some ideas. I saw quite a few people that I had ideas. I wanted an offbeat astronaut. I didn't want the usual thing. I wanted someone who didn't get on with his wife, and all the usual things that happen when you're in ordinary life. But I wanted it just to be, but it happens to be space and all the rest of it. And so I had some ideas, and I saw a few actors. Jerry and I were at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I think very lovely and all the rest of it. And Lou phoned up one day and said, right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to cast Martin Landau and Barbara Bain. I went, oh, God, no. Well, because they're so known in Mission Impossible, and the studio said, if you get them, they'll buy it, and this, that, and the other. And I said, Lou, but they're not right. I don't think Martin Landau's right for this. And Barbara Bain's very wooden, and anyway, no, you got to do it. And he actually insisted, because someone in America had said to him, we'll buy it if you have Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, because they were still hot from Mission Impossible, which, it was a formula thing, and they're good at formula. What I didn't realise, that we're just going to be such a pain over here. They thought, coming to England, we can tell everyone what to do. And they didn't always have the best taste in the world. And they had to have a driver 24 hours a day. All these things, And then Barbara wouldn't go home unless she wouldn't leave Martin behind in case he was flirting with someone. I mean, it was just terrible. And after a series of that, one series, oh my God, no, life's too short. I did say to Lou, I'll do as you tell me, but I don't agree with the casting at all. I would like someone really offbeat. Martin's since proved to be a good character actor, but he was never a leading man. He didn't know how to walk. He was flat-footed. He had to be in every scene. He couldn't allow any actor to have any lines. I did a script conference, and we gave Nick Tate a scene that was his. So, Nick, you should do this. Right. The writers did it. He gets on the set. Martin Landau comes to my office and said, Nick Tate's saying my lines. I said, no, he's not. He's saying his own lines. Yes, but I said, you can't be in every scene the whole time, Martin. And he said, oh, well, I'm the leading man. I said, no, you are, but Nick Tate's a good actor, and he's a young, interesting guy, and he wants more, oh, you're going to give it to him? I said, no, I wouldn't give it to him unless I think it's a change. You can't make all the decisions all the time. Give it to someone else. Even if you disagree with it, you can go in and say, I disagree. Let's have a scene where no, you wouldn't have it. And then it goes to Jerry, and Jerry says, oh, yeah, well, Martin's got to do it. I said, oh, you can't keep pandering to him, because he got worse then. And then I got a call from Lou saying, Rye in Rome, I've put some money in. So you're now going to cast some Italians. What? So I got on the plane, the casting director, see all these Italians. Oh, God, no. Finally found one who was very, very good. He trained in America, had done theatre. He was Italian. Brought him over with a couple of others that I found over there to do a test. We test them. Martin Landau's supposed to test with them. Woody hell. He was sulking the whole time. So the one that I eventually cast came into me and I said, look, he's jealous of you. Let me just put it on the line. Don't take any notice of him. Just go ahead and do your scene, because he's going to make it as difficult as possible because he doesn't want any competition. And so we did the tests. We came up with a viewing thing. Martin came in. I didn't really want him, but he came in with Barbara. They came in, the couple, with the casting director. And the guy that was shooting, Lee Katzman III or something ridiculous, he was being one of their directors on Mission Impossible. And everything they did was wonderful. So I thought, I'm never going to get anything going here properly. And so I sent the tests up to Lou, and he said, what do you think? And I told him Giancarlo Preti was the one, and he said, I agree with you. And Martin Landau went absolutely bananas. We were all sitting in the viewing room, and he suddenly stood up and turned into a monster and started swearing and everything. What do you think you're doing to me? And he went totally mad. And the director he shrunk into his chair, and the casting Michael Barnes, he looked at me. I said, don't look at me, don't do me. And I let him have his rant and rave. No one spoke up, and I stood up and I said, well, when you can speak in a bit more of a civil tone, I'll discuss it with you. But in the meantime, he's been chosen, so put up with it. And we had a costume fitting with him afterwards, and I cancelled it. I said, no, I can't go in there. He rang at home. He got worried then. Joe said, you weren't rude to him. I said, oh, yes, I was. I said, I'm not going to put up with that from anyone. I said, how dare he talk to me like that? I said, you should be worried that he's spoken to me like that. Yes, but no. I said, no, the more you give in to him, the worse he's going to get. So he rang that night when we were home to speak to me. Jerry took the phone call. I said, no, I can't be bothered tonight. I'm not in the mood to talk to him. He's got to get over that, and I'll see him tomorrow at the costume fitting. Didn't get another peep from him, really. But that's what you had to do all the time. And to me, it was very wearing, So in spite of everything, Giancarlo came on the set. Everyone loved him. He did very well. And, of course, he wasn't used again, was he? Naturally not. The first series that I produced, we had was it a 5-day week or something, one of those, and we had no power at all. So we had to get special generators in, freezing cold on the stage there. And then the art department decided to use formaldehyde on a big set. And I walked in there, I said, oh my God, I said, this is going to kill everyone off. You better clear the stage, because everyone was like passing out with formaldehyde. By this time, my home life was disintegrating, and so I didn't do the second series at all. And they brought in someone that did Fred Freiberger, who didn't understand filming over here. Whereas the first series, I used to have very good script conferences. So I'd get the writers in, and Martin and Barbara Bain, who insisted on being there anyway. But anyway, I'd have them in, and we'd hammer it out and say, look, no, that doesn't seem... You've got to be believable, even when you're in an unbelievable situation. So if anything went too haywire, I'd say, no, I don't think that's going to work. But you see, the next series, Freiberger was the guy from Hollywood, and Jerry obviously thought, oh, I've got someone here that's going to agree with everything. But it didn't. And so he got more and more outrageous, Freiberger. To me, it didn't work. So that was a very difficult time in my life, to be honest. All that I'd worked for, I had to walk away from. And that was very, very difficult. Barry Morse, he left as well. He came in to me when I was leaving, and he said, oh, Sylvia, he said, we used to talk about things and what I was going to do and all the rest of it. He said, I can't go around all the time walking after Martin Landau and Barbara Bain. He said, they're too wooden and everything else. He said, I'm not going to do another series. And he didn't. It was difficult. It was very, very difficult for me, because Martin Landau and Barbara Bain I'd looked after and nurtured when they came over. They came to my house. I entertained them for dinner with big house and all the rest of it. Anything you want to know about working over here, I'll help you. I didn't hear a peep from them the second series when they came over. They didn't pick up a phone. They didn't do anything. weren't interested. While I was of use to them, they were. So I thought, I don't really need it. When I worked with HBO, I went over there quite a lot for breakfast. And one day I got a message. Would I like to ring Barbara Bain? No, I wouldn't actually. I didn't bother. I thought, why should I bother? At a time when I needed someone to say something nice to me, they didn't want to know. And I thought, no, you want something, or you now see that I'm doing something with a big company, and therefore I might be of use. So I didn't bother. I didn't return the call. I thought, no. So it's a lesson, really. What do you do? So the fun went out of things. It wasn't the same, and it was such a pity because it was fine when we were all struggling, but once we'd got there, there seemed to be nothing keeping us together, really. No glue. So that was it.